this is a particular challenge because I don't want to be seen as selling Jesus.
Right.
I would want to be seen as inviting people to a life and a hope and a future, and not. I don't want to be compared with any kind of product. Yet at the same time, we have to let our light shine. Mm-hmm. Or this is right. This is your. At the same time, we have to do this. So how do we let our light shine without looking like just another peddler selling a product?
Right. It's a delicate balance.
Mm-hmm.
Welcome to the Main Street Marketing Podcast. I am Skip Ranke, your host, and today I am joined by Pastor Lance O'Donnell from St. Paul's Lutheran Church here in Oconomowoc, and we're going to discuss Christian outreach and some of the challenges and how to overcome them. And hopefully from this episode, if you're a church or religious organization, we can get some information from this in order to help you and your organization with your Christian outreach. So thank you for joining me today. I appreciate you doing it and being here.
Thanks for having me. This is fun.
Tell me a little bit about what you're doing and what's going on at St. Paul's and your role as a senior pastor.
Well, I have been the senior pastor at St. Paul's since 2012, and we are a congregation that is going to be, on July 1st of this year, 159 years old.
Wow.
Coming up on 150 consecutive years of operating a Lutheran school. And so that comes as a particular privilege.
Wow.
For me. I did some doctoral work in missiology, which is the theory and practice of Christian missions, and my interest really became over the years what I call the missionary renewal of historic churches. So, and that's the call that the Lord gave me. And I'm, 22 years as a pastor.
How long have you been a pastor?
22 years as a pastor, and in my 12th year here in Wisconsin.
Oh, awesome. I didn't know that the school was there for 150 years.
It's been longer than that, actually. So
Okay.
We were founded in 1865. We're actually older than the incorporation of the city of Oconomowoc.
Okay.
But in the early German Lutherans, which was our people, even though I'm an Irishman, our early German Lutherans had founded a lot of the churches in the Lutheran Church Missouri Synod. Christian education was central. Mm-hmm. And so it was often a requirement that they build a school along with the church. So we operated the school on and off in the first few years because they just struggled to get it up and running. But yeah, I think this next year is 150 consecutive years.
That's pretty awesome. I know for our congregation in North Prairie, at St. John's Lutheran in North Prairie, you work a lot with us on everything. But when we talk about that, our church has been around for, I want to say it's 145 years, 146 years.
Has it been that long for you
Yeah,
guys? Okay.
I believe it is. But I was reading through some of the old, all the accounts of everything that happened all the way through from our history. And, if you think about the geography of where Oconomowoc is now and where North Prairie is. It's 20-minute drive usually. Yeah. But we had a pastor that went between North Prairie and I believe it was Wales. Or no, maybe I might be having that wrong. But it was like they had to ride their horse.
It was common. In fact, if I remember rightly, we are a daughter church of sorts from St. John's and Sullivan.
Okay.
Which is, I think they were 1861, so I think they're 4 years older.
Think about how old those streets, how long these have been around. It's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
And so, over the course of all those years, there's been challenges.
Sure.
I'm sure. And one of the challenges that we face now in our church environment is no different than probably a lot of some of the challenges they had. And one of the challenges we've had, it's outreach and in attracting new members to the church, to have them hear the Word of God, to receive the body and blood of Christ. So what are some of the challenges that St. Paul's has experienced as part of bringing in new members into the church?
Well, one, I would just say simply, Jesus makes rather exclusive claims about himself. Mm-hmm. That I am the way, the truth, and the life.
Right.
No one, comes to the Father except through me. So that exclusive claim, even though filled with grace and hope and new creation and all the glories that come with Christianity, that exclusive claim doesn't fly really well in the face of a religious pluralistic environment where everybody wants to do their own thing and doesn't want to be necessarily accountable to anybody but themselves.
Right.
And so, you ask the question, what's the biggest challenge? I think that's that's perhaps the biggest challenge. Is our environment is very self-focused, and all the research we're very focused on kind of our own personal autonomy, and that doesn't fly with the Lord Jesus. And so that presents its challenges. On the other side is grace and forgiveness and a community of faith and amazing things that go with it. But you have to give up. Well, Jesus himself says this. You have to, anyone who would gain life must lose it. Right? There's as it were, a submission to Christ. Yeah.
Right. And, the Christianity and church attendance as a whole over the past 10, 15 years has slowly declined.
It's been longer. It's been longer than that.
that.
Yeah. So that's an interesting conversation and related to the outreach stuff, because my sense is that in an environment where you have an ever increasing number of people who don't identify with a rise of nuns, they declare no religious affiliation. In an environment where that percentage is getting increasingly higher, my sense is the best way to grow is actually to have a theological backbone, to have a doctrine and practice to which you're committed, and that turns some away, but there's also there's a permanence to that I think has its advantages, although that doesn't lend itself to exponential growth. And that's another challenge of being in America, because we're very pro-growth and pro-big growth, bigger,
bigger, fast,
faster.
And I want it now, and I want a lot of it.
And that's, I think, another aspect of your question, and one of the other challenges for outreach and even for marketing. We'll talk more about, because those are, I think, two different things, but very related. One of the challenges is, people want stuff their own way, and they want it quickly, and
doesn't work that way.
That's not the way the Lord Jesus works, and nor the church. I think, if it's going to be the church, so we have to confront a cultural assumption that is, in many respects, so much the air that we breathe here that most of us don't even think about.
And when I talk to people, and I talk to people all the time about our church, and and people in Oconomowoc, and you get through in conversations, and they say, I said the Lord works in His time frame.
Yeah,
it's not in what you want, when, and how you want it. It's you have to be patient, and you have to know that it will come to you. Whatever you're praying upon, or you're thinking upon, or it will come to you when the Lord wants that to be right. And part of the outreach is, when you're doing that, we want to help more people. We want to see more people in church, but it happens in His time. So when you say that, it's not always right now. It's not a rush. Bring 50 people in the door tomorrow. It doesn't work.
It's part of, I think for you that work with churches, I think that's, for me, my sense, one of the challenges you face, because for a standard, as it were, secular business, it's about selling more product,
right?
Whatever that is, and that's not the measure of faith. They're the measure of success,
right,
in the church. I was, faithfulness in our circles, in Lutheran circles, it'd be faithfulness to the Scriptures, faithfulness to the Lutheran confessions is really the measure, but that doesn't allow us to ignore the call of the Lord Jesus to make disciples of all nations, and teach them to observe all that He has commanded. And that's Matthew 28. And so we have to balance. We are not a business. We're not selling Jesus as a product.
No.
And yet Jesus is sold like a product all over the place all the time. And it's so easy it would be so easy to step into that. I mean, I struggle with, I love our mission statement. I love some of the work we've done because that process helps you focus. But there's a part of me that recoils at it, because we're not McDonald's. We're not Chick-fil-A. We're not,
right.
And I think a lot of American religion is fast food. We were talking about this off mic before.
Yes.
And it's a question of, how good the fast food is it,
Right.
because there's some fast food that's better than others, but we don't that's for us at St. Paul's. We don't aspire to be fast food at all. If we're going to use a meal analogy, we want to be like Sobeys, or something downtown, some where you're going to get a full, nutritious, delicious,
right,
but not something that you can just gulp down and move on.
right.
But that's how
it's
a
a
lot of
6-course meal. It's a longer time.
and that itself for a church like ours, that itself is a challenge, both on the outreach side and kind of in making that church visible, which is, I guess, the marketing side.
Which it is.
And and so we're advertising. We're not going to give you. This is not BK. Get it, right?
You don't get it your way.
And you can have your hamburger like that, but we're not gonna present Jesus that way.
No.
And that's so it's different, and with a particular set of challenges.
Like everything. Everything has got its challenges. But, so you talk about that. Talk about some of the outreach, and there are things that you've done that haven't been successful. Like you've tried to get somewhere, you try to, reach a certain group of people and have them, what hasn't worked for you?
Yeah, let me speak frankly.
Okay.
Let you ask, what are some things that haven't been successful?
Right.
Well, not talking to people is never successful. And some people do. So, I mean, the number one, and with respect to the importance of having some marketing help and stuff, the number one for evangelism and outreach is personal invitation.
Right.
I mean, we could have billboards all over town and signs in every corner and blasting, every advertisements everywhere. But the best is one-on-one kind of personal invitation. So the stuff that doesn't work is when you come to church, if you're a member of a church and you come to church on Sunday and then you never talk to anybody about it. That doesn't work.
Right.
And I'm not being crass, but
that's true.
It just that doesn't work. I have done a lot of door knocking in the past. I served in Chicago from 2009 to 2012, and that was a way for me to get to know the neighborhood. And
right.
I wasn't obnoxious. I wasn't confronting people on the streets and,
right.
And so forth, but just that didn't go. And I did some of that early on when I came to Oconomowoc in 2012, and yet my sense was when I did that I just seemed like a product salesman.
Yeah.
And so I just haven't done it, and I sometimes I'm tempted to go back out just to be out there.
Right.
But my sense is when you bang on somebody's door, for the most part, you're just like somebody selling a product. And
there's I've had when I was not, I've been almost a lifelong member of our church. I mean, I was away for a while in schools and stuff. But there was people that knocked on the door and to come in and I said, it builds a wall real fast.
Yeah.
But then it was also the perception of the church at that point in time. When you bring that up, it happened when I was up at college. And I said, well, I mean, I appreciate you wanting to come and talk to me about it, and inviting me, but it was just like, it was kind of it was pressured. I felt pressured about it. And that's not what it should be about.
Right.
At all.
And so that's a challenge. That said, there's something to be said for the process of getting out there.
Yeah.
I mean, back in my days before I went to seminary, I was a political campaign consultant.
Oh, I didn't know that.
And I did that. That was my first job out of college, is running a state house campaign in Michigan, which is where I grew up. Mm-hmm. And there was always the initial, I don't want to do this. But once I was out there and talking to people, I got into a rhythm. It was great. And there's something to be said. But I'm not, like I said, this is a particular challenge because I don't want to be seen as selling Jesus.
Right.
I would want to be seen as inviting people to a life and a hope and a future, and not. I don't want to be compared with any kind of product type of
Yeah, but when you talk
ethos.
about that, though, you talk about being out and being visible. That's part of when that's kind of leads into what the next question I was going to talk about is about, well, why do you think it's important to have a marketing strategy? I mean, a church should have a marketing strategy to be visible so they know where you are.
I agree. And you have an environment. This is not like it's not like the 19th century when our parishes were founded.
Right. It was the only church in town, and that's where everybody, all the farmers came, and that's where they went.
It was the church in town,
Yeah.
and they tended to be very ethnic, and there were Norwegian Lutherans and German Lutherans, and our churches often were ethnic, and that's really not the case as much anymore. And so there's this great myriad of churches.
Yeah.
Yeah, that wasn't the case in the 19th century either. And so how do you the Lord has called us to make disciples of all nations. So we need to make ourselves known. With even and Jesus says, "Let your light shine before others," and yet it's different, right? If you're just selling a product or a service of some kind, you can just go and as many contacts as possible and all, but
numbers. It's all about the numbers.
Is different.
Yes. So I think when the marketing is there's a visibility in the public. Probably I would think it would be the biggest one.
Yep.
Because then they see the name, they see the face, they know who you are.
Yep.
That's probably and that's true of any business, regardless of a church or whether it's myself.
Yep.
I mean, being visible in the public is big. And I know spiritware. We have spiritware at our church, and we have it on there that engages conversations.
Indeed.
So it doesn't necessarily have to be a blast out TV ad, but the little things being out in the public is huge. Being visible, because there's a brand recognition to our logo for our church, which Nate's redesigning for us.
Yeah.
But just like you, I mean, yours is unique to St. Paul's, and when people see it, they know you, and
I spent, when we did, so we had our 150th anniversary in 2015. Leading up to that, we did a big strategic plan revision and a logo and stuff. I annoyed the snot out of that logo designer because I had I had very specific ideas about who I wanted us to be, and I wanted that logo to speak both to remind us of who we are.
That's right.
And also to be an invitation of sorts,
right.
So identified with us, but also reminded us of who we are. And so, I annoyed the snot out of him, but we got it the way we wanted, and I like it, and it continues to teach. So
exactly. When we went through ours, we're now changing it, because we have actually. We're going through a kind of a change. We have a new pastor, Pastor Nielsen, and so we're going through the change. And we have this, the school and the church, and it's always been separated by a hallway, and so it almost, it was almost being treated as two different things. And when Pastor came, we had a conversation. I said, no, it's one God, one voice, one mission, one church, and so now we're redoing the logo. And it's going to take the two logos that we had for the two separate entities and mix them into one. Yep. And it's a whole new mission, a whole new vision. Yep. All the way down the line. And it's refreshing. I know you got a little bit of a job on your hands there, Nate, doing that. But I appreciate it. But it's important. The logo is very important because it should say something about the church and the organization. So it does teach. Like you say, it teaches, but it's identifiable about who you are. Yep. I think it's really awesome. So one question I had is, how involved do you think a pastor should be in outreach efforts?
I think the pastor should absolutely be involved as part of my call. I have a considerable amount of guilt about that, right? St. Paul to Timothy, do the work of an evangelist, the preaching, the teaching, the care, all that stuff. So that's I have a certain level of, I don't know, guilt, maybe not the right word, but maybe it is, because it's part of my call and trying to be out there. But I also I'm a senior pastor, and I have
A lot of responsibility.
I have a fair amount of administrative responsibility, which, there'll be a time that comes when I'm a little older where I will be happy to let somebody else do that.
Right.
And I can focus more on core tasks, but because that's attention I have every day.
Yeah.
I honestly, you asked the question, I think about this probably every day I'm in the office. Should I take a half hour out and just go?
And every pastor thinks that way that I've talked to.
Go downtown and be out talking to people.
Right. Pastor Nielsen, I'm sure has that. I know when Pastor Torkelson was there, that was his thing. He talked about it too. He says, I need to be doing more of teaching, more evangelizing, going and seeing members and things like that. But there's a long list of things. So when you say it's important, it is crucial.
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely.
Good
So
question.
what marketing strategies or modes do you currently use in order to broadcast the message of St. Paul's?
Well, we have a website, of course. We have some social media presence. There's a live stream. We started a podcast a couple years ago, which has been a lot of fun. And
was it the Christ in All Things?
Christ in All Things, yep.
ChristinAllThings.org
is our podcast, which Pastor Jason Schachman and I do, and we're the two pastors at St. Paul's. That's we do some print, usually around the holidays.
Okay.
We do some additional social media type stuff and mailing related to key dates for sign up for school.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah, because
Sure.
we are now about 65% non-members at our school. So in order for our school to do the type and level of stuff that we've become accustomed to, that we have to have other people join the school family who aren't necessarily members of the church now, and so the school is, interestingly, both the number one means by which we teach our own, and one of the top means by which we bring people in into the life of faith. So yeah, it's both number one means by which we teach our own, but it's also probably the number one means by which we bring people in, the school itself.
That raises an interesting question as it relates to the school. Are you finding more people are looking for a more wholesome and...
Oh, for sure.
Yeah,
the pandemic accelerated that.
It did.
Yep.
I was curious about that because I know that we're at our school at we're seeing that more families are wanting to have that type of education for their children.
Yeah, that want not to have their children exposed to
some myriad of things.
The myriad of different ethical things that you really don't want to, especially early on, because you have you have early childhood. We go through early childhood through 8th grade here, and so that was absolutely a factor.
You mentioned COVID, and I hate mentioning COVID, because it's gone, it's past. Well, it's still
except
here,
that it's not.
Except that it's not. But when you had the live stream, so that did you, after COVID, did you notice a exodus of members?
No.
Or did you see an insurgence of members?
I think
or was it about the same?
I think neither. I have ever since broadband internet made a live stream of a church service viable, and so I've been an advocate of doing it, and I was advocating for this when I served at my congregation in Chicago, and there was some pushback, and it's a legitimate question. Well, then people are just going to sit on their, in their pajamas and not come in.
Right.
I said, I
don't really think so.
I don't really think so, and it also to some degree depends how you do it. And this, from my standpoint, I wanted us to have especially good audio quality and decent video, but I didn't want it to look like a religious production, because I wasn't. So the way we view our live stream is that this is a pretty good clear window into a living, breathing Lutheran congregation.
Yeah.
And as such, that's an invitation. We view the podcast the same way. We say in the outro to our podcast, right, that this is digital, and it's fine. But what God wants us to be is have human connection.
Correct.
So I view the live stream provides a great window into a living, breathing Lutheran congregation, and as a secondary level, provides a good, clear window for our shut-ins who can't be there.
That's right.
To see what's going on, and I've been fortunate ever since the beginning of my service as a pastor.
Mm-hmm.
I served, at Emmanuel Lutheran Church in Van Wert, Ohio, from 2002 to 2009, and we had been on the Fox channel out of Lima, Ohio, for years. So I had a day. I was on TV, changed my preaching. When I saw myself on TV, but I was fascinated early on, and this is going back into the early 2000s. I became a pastor in 2002. I go to visit somebody. I go to visit a shut-in, and the shut-in had watched either the show on the Fox on Fox, or they'd watched it on the local cable access channel that we also broadcasted.
Okay, all right.
At the time, and I can't tell you how many times I had a member of my congregation say, "Hey, so and so didn't come up for communion today. They weren't there." It used to be, we had cable access, and people could watch cable it delayed. Access. You remember that?
Yeah, I do remember cable access.
But now the live stream, if you're shut in and can't come to church, that's your congregation,
right?
And those are your people, and that's really important. But for me, fundamentally, the live stream is a window, God willing, a good, clear, but still a window, not a production, into a living, breathing congregation. Oh, you also asked. We've been on the radio for years.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that.
Yeah, it's almost an afterthought, but it's a surprising number of listeners. We're on WTKM 104.9 at 8 o'clock every Sunday morning for 30 plus years now.
Oh wow!
Yeah.
So when you talk about the live stream is an awesome way, and I think that helped us retain members through COVID, because they had an outlet to still watch church.
Yep.
And it was an interesting story. I was buying all of this live stream equipment like a month before COVID hit.
No kidding.
And my wife was like, "Why are you buying all this stuff? You don't even do live streams." But I just thought I had it on my heart that I needed to buy this stuff, and I'm like, I don't know. I think this is something down the line we'll probably be doing. It's a natural progression for us as a video.
Yeah.
People that do video. And then COVID hit, and I was like, oh.
Here we go.
I guess I better learn how to use this.
Yeah.
Because Pastor Torgelson called me and says, well, how can we get this on the air? I said, well, just so happens I got this equipment that I've been buying.
I know what I'm doing.
And he said, wow. And then we never missed an episode.
It was a godsend early on.
Yeah.
But it did, and I had people in the congregation who, like you, that had some talent in this, and we put up a decent quality broadcast right away.
Yeah.
And I was super thankful for it, but it's I want to talk about COVID actually, because we learned so much.
We did.
And I know it's past, but I feel like I'm still learning. Very early on, I was then all of a sudden very, very concerned about how I looked, whether I had a hair out of place, and all that stuff.
Right.
I told people, I said, one day I was a pastor, and the next day I was a televangelist.
Oh.
Like when COVID hit, I became
a televangelist.
I
guess I never thought about it that way.
Yeah, I couldn't. I had a guy in my congregation, the late Don Garkey, God bless him, who has served our country with great honor and got Agent Orange and died very painfully in the VA early on, and they wouldn't let me see him. I couldn't be in person at the deathbed, but there I was in my vestments and out there and smiling for everybody with a nice close-up for the camera. and that's not what I was trained for.
Yeah.
And it's not that, and for me, that's at best a secondary thing.
Right. But I guess I really never thought about it like that, because really that's everybody that had live stream. That's what you were.
Yeah, one day we were pastors, and the next day we were televangelists.
Wow. That's a different way of looking at it. So what are some other tips for congregations and churches to retain members? What are some of the things that they can do to help keep the people in the church?
Well, one is have a theological backbone.
Right.
Know who you are and be that in teaching and in practice. And it maybe sounds terrible. Some will come and some will go, but have a theological backbone and be hospitable and meet people. That's, I think, I don't want to say an important challenge for us, because, again, we're a congregation that worships in a very kind of classic, traditional way. And it's not like sitting down in theater seats and being passive. I mean, there is more of a learning curve to being a participant in worship at St. Paul's, as opposed to other very common American ways of doing this.
Right.
And so it's important for our people to be hospitable. One of the changes post-COVID, we went back to, and it annoys all the introverts, but I think even the good introverts in the congregation knows, we greet people again.
Okay. We're as part of the service?
As part of the service.
Yes.
We did it for years. We stopped. We couldn't touch each other. We had to stay, and that lasted for a while.
Oh, yeah.
But then people were still, but for me, it's a very important part of our outreach,
of who we are,
is you say hello to the people around you, and right, per what you do. If you're not willing to say hello to the person sitting in the pew or chair next to you, are you going to talk to anybody else anywhere else? Probably not.
Yep, that answer is no.
So that it's actually, and I think increasingly, because they're so digital, with younger people,
how you communicate with them is completely different.
We have to. This is becoming an issue for a school, and one of the great advantages. And we deliberately, as a school, because we do K through 8, we are deliberately, like a lot of higher end schools in the tech sector, are decreasing our emphasis on technology and increasing our emphasis on interpersonal communication and to some degree to print. And the kids are going to be very competent with the digital thing, because that's the world in which they live
naturally.
But I remember when iPads came out, everybody, including the school I was serving in Chicago, we were all game to put an iPad in everybody's hand. But now we recognize, when you're little, that may not be. In fact, it's not the best thing. In fact, it's not only not the best thing; it's might actually be the worst thing.
Yep.
So, we're having to, teaching people, reminding people how to be hospitable in an age when we are, it's amazing. You can be in a fairly dense environment, and nobody sees each other. They're all looking at screens. We're all disconnected.
Yes, we are. I had that as I was driving. I wanted to shake, so I went through Dairy Queen.
Yeah.
Sorry, honey, but I went through Dairy Queen, and I was sitting at the drive-thru, and there was a family that was sitting on a picnic table, and I was looking at them. Every single person had their head down.
Yeah.
3 kids and 2 adults, and everybody was looking on their phone, and nobody was talking.
Yeah.
So that is refreshing to hear that you're even moving away from it and really focusing on that is key. When I talk about something with regards to knowing, when you talk to people, how do you talk to your audience or your congregation? How do you get to know what's on their mind? I mean, with just common conversation, but you're with the technology, do you send out surveys to people to get information with them or anything like that?
I probably should. We have thought about it, but then again, I wrestle with this because I don't want to be turned off. like I turn off every telemarketer now. Like I turn off most phishing of any sort that I encounter.
Yeah.
I just, I don't. It used to be early on, when they started doing robocalls, I would answer the phone.
Right.
And now we don't even bother. And we've got a filter if it says spam risk. I don't want to be spam risk.
Yeah, no.
And yet at the same time, we have to let our light shine. Mm-hmm. Or this is at the same time we have to do this. So how do we let our light shine without looking like just another peddler selling a product?
Right. It's a delicate balance, and it's a hard line to walk. And so, and when you talk about that, I mean, what are some of the biggest lessons you've learned through some of your church outreach? What are some of the things that you've learned?
Well, I mean, we talked about some of this already.
Yeah.
Number one is personal invitation and talking to people. Again, having a knowing who you are allows you to say yes with confidence and no with confidence.
Right.
And you could do. I mean, we get so many requests to do this and that and the other thing, but and you can get easily distracted. So knowing who you are, I think, theologically and in a sense for the family of your congregation, helps you make some decisions about how you're gonna do things.
Right, and knowing why you're here.
Right.
Ultimately, because we're going through there's a why process we're going through,
yep.
and to define who you are and why you're here, and then taking that message out to the public, and then ultimately by doing that, people will come and they'll attend the church. But again, it's a slow roll. It's not something it's not gonna happen right away. It's not like opening up the day of the Black Friday when they got the 5 50-inch screens that are being sold and everybody runs through the door. That's not how it is. And I think that people have to understand that. And that's the same thing in marketing for a company. Mm-hmm. People think, I'm going to send out 500 postcards. I'm going to get 30 people calling me. It doesn't work that way. So it's kind of along. There is a parallel along kind of that same attitude with the church. Mm-hmm. So all right, well that's awesome information. But now we're going to play a game.
Oh no! Okay,
yeah, we're going to play a game. It's called Bible Memory.
Memory.
The outreach edition.
I'll do the best I can.
I know you will, but you're gonna ace this. I know you're going to. So what we're going to do is I'm going to read off a verse, and I'll give you 4 options, and you got to pick what the verse.
The reference is?
Yes, is.
Okay.
It's all good. All right, so the first verse is, and he said to them, these are all in ESV, by the way.
Yep.
Okay. So, and he said to them, go into all the world and proclaim the gospel to the whole creation.
That's Mark 16, I think.
Yep, you're right on.
Yeah.
I didn't even have to give you the option. 16, 15. Okay. Perfect. Bible verse 2. How then will they call on him in who they have not believed? And how they to believe in him who they have never heard? And how are they to hear without someone preaching?
I know this verse. Romans 10?
Yeah.
Yeah, Romans 10.
14.
Okay.
Perfect.
Yep.
Okay, right. I'm not even having to give you the options. This
is
cool. All right, last one. But in your hearts honor Christ the Lord as holy, always being prepared to make a defense to anyone who asks you for a reason for the hope that is in you.
I get the chapter
do
wrong.
it with the gentleness.
1 Peter 3?
Yeah.
1 Peter 3. Always with gentleness and respect.
There it is. Yeah. Awesome.
15?
Yes. 1 Peter 3:15. Wait till you tell Chris you didn't even need the options on this thing. Hey, thanks a lot for coming in and going over with this today. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me. Enjoy the conversation.
Yeah, and so if you're in the area and you're looking to hear the Word of God, awesome church to go to. When we lived in the area, we attended St. Paul's. It was wonderful. But now that we're moved out of the area, we attend my home church, so it's pretty awesome. But go to St. Paul's Lutheran Church. They're awesome here in town. And if you have any questions with regards to anything we talked about today, please hit me up, or I'll even, I'll direct you to, I can ask him. He's a busy guy. If you have a question, send it to me and I'll text it to him. But thanks for watching us today. Be sure to like us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. And we hope to watch our next episode. We look forward to seeing you soon. Thanks. Hey, thanks for watching the latest episode of the Main Street Marketing Podcast. We really hope you got some great information. If you know somebody else who can use it, share it and like it, because we want to help as many business owners as we can. And also, do not forget to hit the subscribe button and hit that bell so as we release more episodes, we can give you even more content to help you in your business. Thanks.